All right, good morning. It's 9:05. We're going to get started. Welcome to the public comment hearing for the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority. I'm the Executive Director, Adria Berry. We are all here today to listen and receive your feedback, which we will take back to our staff and to our team to analyze and see if there are changes to be made to the rules. We will take all comments, written and received today, and reviewed in totality as a whole, and weigh the merits of the comments altogether. No comments will be received in a vacuum. They will all be weighed together. I believe that is the spot for public comment, sir. Yes. So yeah. This will be an area for people making their public comments. I just told you with my words, so can you please, yeah. All right, so I am going to turn it over to Barrett Brown now to run the remainder of the meeting, but I would like to make sure that you all see exactly what we're here to do today, to discuss public comment on the rules that we have published. Barrett's going to go into details.
Thank you, Director Berry. Yes, my name is Barrett Brown. I'm the Chief of Staff here at OMA. Sitting to my right is Ashley Kroll. She is the Rules Liaison. She's the person who's been receiving primarily all of the public comments up to this point, which is a good point to remind you that public comments have been available for the last 30 days. They could be submitted via snail mail, online. You can walk it physically to our office. You can call and make public comment. You can make it on our website. And now you can make it here at the hearing. So today is February 16th, 2024. It is 9:07 a.m. We're in the State Capitol, room 535. The purpose of this meeting is to receive public comment on proposed permanent rules to Oklahoma Administrative Code, Chapter 442, Title 442, Chapter 1, and 442, Chapter 10. This meeting was posted in the Oklahoma Register via the Notice of Rulemaking Intent and published in the Oklahoma Register and on the OMA website. Speakers must sign in at the door by 9:05 a.m. and must identify themselves and the organization that you represent, if any, and the proposed rule, the specific rule that you wish to address. Time for each speaker will be based on the number of speakers, number of registered speakers, and every attempt will be made to accommodate each individual desiring to speak. The two chapters on the agenda today are Chapter 1, Administrative Operations, and Chapter 10, Medical Marijuana Regulations. The Oklahoma Administrative Procedures Act requires that agencies cannot change rules that were not announced in the Notice of Rulemaking Intent, comment on changes not included in the Notice of Rulemaking Intent, and I would also add, cannot change our rules to conflict with statute. I'd like to repeat that. Cannot change our rules pursuant to any public comment or otherwise if it will be in direct conflict with statute. Comments may be limited if there are many desiring to speak. Spoiler alert, there are many desiring to speak. So I'll call on those registered speakers in the order in which they were registered according to the page numbers at the bottom of the sign-in sheet. Based on the number of speakers we have and the number of time that we have this room reserved for, each speaker will be provided with 3 minutes to deliver your public comment. If you'll please sit in one of these two chairs. We've got these microphones. That one's not on, but you can turn it on to where it looks red like this. That means it's on, and deliver your public comment. I will start the timer whenever the speaker begins speaking. So we will begin with, one other housekeeping matter. I'm reading your names based off of how you have written them. So if I mispronounce it, it might be your fault because of handwriting. I promise it's not. I'm trying not to mispronounce your name, but just bear with me here. So if I do mispronounce it, please correct me. Which means when you begin with your public comment, please start with your name as a reminder. Your name, if you're here on behalf of any organization or representing any organization, which organization that is, and then your public comment. And when you start with your public comment, I'll start with the timer. So first we have Estella Castro.
And how would you like me to just introduce myself?
If you could just say your name, and if you are here on behalf of any organization, what organization that is, and then you can start with your public comment, and I'll begin the timer when you start.
Okay, thank you. Yes, my name is Estella Castro, and I'm representing Austinite Cannabis Company. And let's see. I'd like to see if I could ask if there is any way that we can talk to somebody about compliance questions, answers, ask why there are any rules starting to favor the big guys over hurting the mom and pop operations like myself, waiting on a answer from the OMMA for the last 2 years on a renewal. And let me see what else I have. Didn't think I was going to be going first. So I'd like to see if there is going to be any addressing of any lettering after the 90 days that you said that y'all are going to allow of any renewals or cancellations, and it has been since July of 2023 and waiting on a renewal since September of 2022, which has been 2 years now. And I have filled out all my documentation, had numerous inspections at my other dispensaries, and I would just like to see if there's ever going to be a time where I can speak to somebody face to face about issues I'm having with getting renewals and how the laws are getting changed with that. So I think that's going to be it.
Thank you, Ms. Castro, for your public comment. Next we have Jeffrey, is that Howard or Havard? Howard. We'll go with that.
Push the button.
There we go. All right, my name is Jeffrey Havard. I am the lab manager and owner of Havard Industries, a cannabis testing lab located here in Oklahoma. I'm here to speak on Part I, page 80 of the proposed permanent rules. Currently, it's stating that labs should internally retest samples at 30% THC and that the QA lab should be testing at 32.5% THC. I understand why this rule is probably proposed to address inflation of THC numbers that is commonly happening in a lot of the cannabis markets. We looked into this quite extensively, and we found that like the average THC of cannabis flowers is quite considerably lower. A lot of studies are showing between 15 to 20%. We actually did a study ourselves and found that like the total amount of THC that was in the samples that we tested was quite considerably lower than what was being reported out there on labels. And we do have these reports available for anybody that wants to take a look at that as well. We're actually proposing that this limit be far lower to actually try to address this concern of inflation. So our proposal is that that the labs internally retest at 22.5% THC to 25%, and that the QA lab steps in at 25.1% and more to hopefully start addressing this issue of inflation. So if you want a copy of the report or have any questions in regards to it, please feel free to come see me after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Havard, for your public comment. Next we have Mr. Dalton Hilburn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dalton Hilburn. I'm a senior technician at Havard Industries, one of the cannabis testing labs here in the state. I'm here today to address Part B, page 74 of the permanent rules, and tell you why I'm opposed to it. This rule pertains to the specification of equipment and protocols that are to be used in the testing labs. This needs to stop. There are many different types of equipment available, many different ways to prepare samples for testing. Laws that tell us how to do this not only limit what we can do, but may actually be worse for the industry. For example, let's say you wish to travel from one city to another. There are many different ways actually, and they're all correct. You can choose from a variety of vehicles to get you from point A to B. You can also choose from many different roads to get you to your destination. The vehicles and paths that you can take are all correct, and in the end, the correct result is what matters. Laboratory proficiency testing is already required by law to ensure the labs are getting the correct answer. This accounts for any variation in methods and equipment. Any attempt to specify the type of equipment or protocols we must use are just killing innovation. Better ways of testing are always evolving. This rule only adds unnecessary expenses to an already financially demanding industry. While this particular law relates to the ICP, or the equipment that tests for heavy metals, we are opposed to any specification of any equipment or protocols for any of the testing whatsoever. Trying to fit all the labs into a box is not the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hilbert, for your public comment. Next, and I know I'm going to struggle with this one, Mohammed Mirambigal. Did I get close? Nice.
Right button. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. My name is Muhammad Ali Murambigi. I'm with Havard Industries. I went from the operations end then to the marketing and sample pickup end. What I'm here to kind of talk about is the addressing of sample sizes. I believe that they changed it to 7 grams. We believe that stating the sample size should be determined by the lab and not externally. Also, we would also like to state that the labs should be sampling enough to make them accurate and should be determined internally, as that's done through ISO to validate your scientific process. Also state that everything is an honor system. Whenever I go to pick up samples, I don't really know exactly where these samples actually came from. I mean, the reality is I'm not extracting them from the plant or their harvest. So the reality is that who knows where that sample came from? It's kind of all an honor system. If this is all about safety for the patients, then I don't see any new rules addressing those issues. These are massive issues, in my opinion. When I pick up a sample, for us as a lab, our job is to test the sample that's provided to us. It's not for us to kind of police. I mean, there's certain things that of possibly tampering with the sample. There's a lot of red flags. The other point I'd like to make is on the sample field logs. Other than a paper trail for OMA and who sampled, this doesn't give us any relevant data for the lab. We don't know why we should be holding on to sample field logs at all. I believe the lab group was trying to address that as well. We just see a lot of inconsistencies. Also, the potency being able to affect the economics within, like as Jeff stated earlier, he's the leader of our lab. With the potency really affecting the direct economics and seeing the inflation of potency, and also the averages in Colorado being like 19%, the averages in Denmark, which has had a legal market for a lot longer than we have, those averages being 17%, high THC being considered anything over 17% in the typical cannabis industry. If this is a medical field, it's hard to judge what is going to be true, especially whenever there's such economic interest and such miseducation on what the medical effects of what THC are. So those inconsistencies and getting to meet people as I've met people in the industry and been able to go from the operations to actually meeting a lot of these clients, from what I've felt is the ones that feel like they're trying to follow the rules, they're trying to be honest, they feel like they're getting punished as they're trying to provide very good medicine for the industry. And then we see those people drift off where they're almost forced into a corner of, do they have to play the game, the manipulative game of what economics end up providing for them, or do they have to try to be honest? And I see the ones that are trying to be honest, and it looks like that they're hurting as a result. So I think that a lot of rules need to be addressed on those things. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mirambighi. Next we have, I believe it's Geary Wilson.
My name is Gary Wilson. I'm with Bark and Leo Farms. I want to start by saying I came into this business trying to provide, because I thought it would be a regulated business on the level, and we provide a good product off the black market. The patient could be trusting in what they're getting. What I found since I've been there is we're surrounded on all sides by nefarious actors. Even some actors that didn't start out nefarious are forced into it. It's like steroids in baseball. You can choose not to take the steroids, but you're not going to go to the home run derby, right? You're not going to get the new contract unless everybody's tested and they can't do it. In the testing field, there's absolutely an impossibility that the amount of testing we have at high test are actually accurate. We've done what we consider an honest program, sampling exactly as it should be done. And we could have a variation of one plant, 18 to 22%. We have some that rate 25, 26. They're designed for it. Others, there's no way you would take an 18 strain and create a 32 out of that. Yet we're flooded on all sides by these high numbers. This economically comes down on us, because all of a sudden my product, honestly tested at an 18, 19, and a 20, is relegated to a different economic level than somebody else that comes in and says a 28 to a 32. Even though if you tested that on the side, you'd find out that it's 10 points less. This is bad on several reasons. It's bad economically for an honest player. It's also bad for the patient. They don't know what they're getting. If it happens in the THC, it could also be happening within the microbial. It could also be happening within the pesticides, where you have a sample that you know is clean and it goes, and what's really there is not, and the patient doesn't know what they're getting. I don't think the sample size addresses any part of that. I believe that there are some ways to mitigate it a little bit, but the loopholes and corruption can find their own little niches to get through that. If you have a sample that tests over a certain amount, it should automatically, and I don't think 30 is a number, I think it's probably around 28, and then you can watch the number stack at 27.5 and see what happens. And then analytics should be able to tease out this data, right? But it should be somewhere around that. I don't think 23 is it. I kind of disagree, I think, with my friends, but definitely somewhere below the 30 mark is another number. If that happens, go back, test the reserve, and ask for another sample from the same batch, so that if it's been adulterated, we can find out, is it the lab? Is it the grower? Because right now, you can go and pick something up at a dispensary, test against their numbers, and if it's 10 or 12% off or a difference of that magnitude, you don't know what's happening, where it happened. Did it happen at the lab? Did it happen at the grower? Is it how the dispensary's holding it? Is it in a window? Is it all these other things that could modify that? So I'm not pointing fingers at any one group, but this data, it can be teased out. And so I believe that the sample size isn't it, but you should have a robust auditing system for anything that seems anomalous. And within a range, like 15, 20% of a thing, you can get that range, right?
I'm going to have to stop you there. Your 3 minutes is up, but thank you, Mr. Wilson, for your public comment.
All right.
Next we have Mr. Matt Durr. Hopefully that was right. Close.
My name is Matt Dewar, owner of health cannabis company in Ardmore, Oklahoma. One of my main issues is the employee credential for those who do services at our grow. In Ardmore, Oklahoma, it's hard enough to find employees qualified and to come work on our grow, much less asking if they're credentialed to work on our grow. That is a very difficult thing to overcome, seeing how it's hard enough to find people to work down there anyway. Also, I'll bring it up under definitions. You know, the difference between a greenhouse and light deprivation is concrete floors. That makes absolutely no sense as a grower. Light deprivation can come in a greenhouse, and it doesn't matter if you have concrete floors or not. If I have concrete floors in my greenhouse that I'm also providing light dep for, it doesn't change the fact that I'm still a greenhouse. I will mention the grower's bond compared to oil and gas sites in the state of Oklahoma. Oil and gas pays $25,000 growers or a bond for multiple sites, which has way more harm to our environment than any grower can possibly have at their grow site. As an insured company, insurance will fix any issues, spills, contamination that happens from a grower or commercial business. So why we're required to have double the bonds that an oil and gas company would have on a site that could possibly spoil all the environment that their site holds just blows my mind. As a licensed commercial applicator in the state of Oklahoma for over 30 years now, my other company holds fertilizer licenses as a certified applicator, and not once has the Department of Ag come to me and said, you need to have a bond for the fertilizer that you carry on your site. So it makes no sense why growers would have to have that as well. As far as the tax on the retail marijuana sales, I totally am for the substance abuse programs for the Red Bud School Acts, but I also think that there should be tax to help OB&DD fight the black market that is happening in our state right now. We've seen a major decrease in patients purchasing medical marijuana because they have so much out there on the black market to get, and I believe most of our businesses are struggling with that. And so I would ask for some funding for OB&D to help crack down on the black market. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dewar, for your public comment. Next, we've got Kelsey Palmer.
Excuse me. My name is Kelsey Palmer. I'm the Director of Operations for OKAF Inc., DBA Apothecary Farms, Apothecary Extracts. We have a couple changes that we are requesting to have your ears for this morning. In summary, we would like to change the term in rule from flash frozen to fresh frozen to accurately reflect the nationally recognized term within cannabis commerce. Secondarily, along with this, is to allow fresh frozen to be delivered to a testing facility within 48 hours after the sample has been taken to allow the harvest batch to freeze as intended within its final form. Our reasoning behind this, first involving 442-10-8-1 I-9, is to change flash frozen to fresh frozen, as it is a nationally recognized term, and whereas flash frozen is not necessarily accurate to referring to cannabis biomass. Fresh frozen is a widely used term, as I'm sure you're aware, that is more accurate towards our process as an extractor. Our final recommendation seeks to refine the operational procedures for handling fresh frozen samples, acknowledging the unique logistical challenges that they do represent being frozen. Fresh frozen biomass, due to its necessity to be immediately frozen post-harvest to maintain its quality, demands a distinct approach for sampling and storage compared to traditionally dried biomass. Really, the biggest part of this is to ensure the integrity and representativeness of this sample in its true final form. The sequence is crucial in attempting to sample from an already frozen batch because that introduces significant risk of contamination if we're breaking into an already frozen batch to pull a sample out. Ideally, obviously we would be pulling that and at the time of harvest to make sure that we are getting that randomized sample across the board, as well as the fact that we need sufficient time to allow these samples to be frozen before transfer to the lab, whereas 24 hours sometimes does not give that adequate time to freeze appropriately. This approach not only adheres to really best practices within the industry on our end of things, but also ensures the reliability of testing results, thereby upholding the product quality and safety standards. And that is really all I have this morning, but I appreciate you guys' time.
Thank you, Mrs. Palmer, for your public comment. Next, we have Mr. Kevin Gallagher.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Gallagher. I'm the Director of Compliance and Regulatory Affairs with OKAF Inc., doing business as Apothecary Farms and Apothecary Extracts. I would like to talk about two things this morning, redundant testing and process validation. We appreciate the authorities' attempt to address redundant testing within 44210-8-1S4. We request to broaden the scope to pesticides if the initial concentrate has already been tested as such. Additionally, we would like to address redundant testing to expand to harvest batches that are exclusively allocated to extractions when grown and extracted by the same business at the same location. This ensures quality logistics within the same supply chain while maintaining public health safety through final product testing and enabling operations to use savings to reinvest in their production operations to achieve high standards seen in other industries. With process validation as the main stakeholder behind the policy within House Bill 3929, we recognize the importance of a systematic and documentable approach to ensure manufacturing consistency and reliability. Current rules render the program inoperable for businesses, unfortunately. One, businesses should be able to choose the products and contaminants that are being validated, just like other businesses under FDA oversight. Two, we noticed a typo that still requires all batches to be tested after achieving process validation. Our recommendation is after a business achieves process validation that there would be 30-day ongoing testing with those products that are validated. Next, our recommendation is to remove the quality management system requirements and replace them with hazard analysis critical control point regulations due to current operational realities and limited regulatory resources. Cannabis operators should be granted the flexibility to utilize process validation alongside a HACCP system rather than mandating a QMS, primarily due to the significant operational costs associated with implementing QMS, which is projected to be about $250,000. This includes employing a quality manager, additional equipment, additional third-party testing, training, and maintenance. By allowing process validation within a HACCP framework, medical marijuana businesses can still uphold rigorous quality and safety standards while mitigating the financial burdens of a full QMS. This approach acknowledges the unique challenges faced by cannabis businesses, including tax burdens imposed by 280E, while also being the only industry that is exclusively required to test through third-party testing labs, which further makes this situation worse. Remember, non-cannabis businesses such as commercial food, pharmaceutical industries test in-house and can write off such costs, enabling an operationally cost-effective QMS. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher, for your public comment. Next, we have, I think that's Logan Hughes. Could be Lynn Hughes. All right. So you'd like to skip yourself? Very good. Next, we have Nick Serrano.
We're good. All right, thank you. Hi, my name is Nick Serrano. I own Southwest Genetics. We're a nursery in Oklahoma City. And I wanted to speak about 442 10-4-5, specifically F3D E3F, which is basically the tag requirements on the seed of sale. So nurseries are a little different than growers that grow for flower. We're often overlooked. Legislation, tech, a lot of aspects where some of these rules are trying to place on the growers that harvest for flower, and they don't quite mesh with what we do. We're a vendor for most of these grows, and as a result, our costs are a little different. You know, our sales, for instance, a clone might be $6, whereas a flower of pound might be, or a pound of flower might be $1,000. So some tags that are required now on clones, every clone, whether it's 12 inches, a mother plant, becomes a little onerous for us. I calculated about 13% is a new cost for us with this this enacted new rule. What I was hoping is that we could continue with using package tags on transfers and not using these individual plant tags. So that's number one. Number two, the 12-inch rule seems a little odd to me. I'm not sure why it was 12 inches was the choice for the height of the clone to affix a tag to. It mentions using a lower branch on a 12-inch plant, but for example, most plants that are 12 inches tall, the branch will not hold a tag on that. It just won't. It's like a node, really, if you know what that means. Also, where do we start measuring 12 inches? Is it from that first branch where you want the tag at? Is it the top of the rock wool? Is it the base of the rock wool? The bottom of the lowest root, if that's considered still the plant? So it's just a little ambiguous. Because of the ambiguity on the 12-inch, I would like to just stick with the package tags. You know, we cut thousands of clones a week. If we root every one of those clones, say 4,000, you know, you just do the math. It's simple. It's 45 cents per tag. It becomes expensive. In addition, I think the mother plants that it mentions, sometimes we sell those as well. And in the legislation, I believe it said, or the rule, it says that if plants cannot change into for harvest, change form for harvest or processing. So sometimes those mother plants that we have can change into that, so they wouldn't fall into the definition of a mother plant. So anyway, that's mainly it. And I would like to propose no new rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Serrano, for your public comment. Next, we have Joshua G.
Good morning. My name is Joshua Graston. I wear several hats in the industry. A couple of those that are relevant. I'm the director of alchemy of a company called Beehive Blends, which is based in Utah, which is a state that requires a pharmacist on site at all dispensaries. I'm here in the state of Oklahoma. I own a company called Big Bang Canna that both consults and works with over a dozen different Oklahoma medical marijuana processors and dispensaries. As well, I am the director of scientific operations for J3 Hempco, which has a national presence. I would like to speak to you today regarding Senate Bill 1979. I understand the logic behind wanting a pharmacist on site at every dispensary, but if we look at the way the bill is written currently, it changes the word dispensary manager to mean pharmacist. It means they have to be there to unlock the doors. It means they have to be there to verify every patient card. It specifies that they have to be the one providing the educational benefits. They have to be the one conducting the transactions. This is a problem for a lot of reasons. The first of which that I see is that in a pharmacist education, the entirety of it, they receive 2 hours of training on the possible benefits of medical marijuana, including an hour and 15-minute video produced by the DEA. And that's their education. On top of that, the average salary of a pharmacist in the state of Oklahoma as of last month was $144,000. But they've got to be there for every transaction. So every dispensary that operates 24 hours is going to need 3 of them. This rule has the best intentions, but because it is based in an uneducated move, it is going to have monumental consequences to every dispensary. And even if they survive, it's going to drive up the cost of right now what is very affordably priced medication that a lot of patients are using. I understand the need to regulate our industry, but it should not be done from a place of ignorance or punitive damages to the people that have put their livelihood into it. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your public comment. Next, we have Mr. Ron Durbin.
Is it okay to sit in this chair now? All right, it wasn't clearly marked, so I just wanted to make sure. My name is Ronald Edward Durbin II. I am here to speak on behalf of myself. As I always do, I speak on behalf of myself and my Nikes that I'm wearing that day. I do happen to also represent hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of medical marijuana businesses in this state. I think I'm well over 450 at this point. I stopped counting quite a while ago. The fact of the matter is, I've already submitted public comments online related to the rules, but I just wanted to comment about a few things. The fact that any of you are still smiling after anybody speaks here today is a deplorable state of how you feel about this industry. You all specifically have ruined this industry by not listening to these people. If anything that today should have taught you was that your rulemaking process is backwards. You should be listening to these people in boards and panels of experts before you propose rules and regulations that are going to impact them so they can provide you some guidance and insight. There's some smart people that have spoken here today, far smarter than I am, that know things that I can't even possibly imagine. They've woken me up to some areas of change that need to happen. So now I need to start listening to them as I continue the fight that I'm on. But the fact of the matter is, your whole agency is designed to help fix this, to regulate it in a sane and reasonable manner, and you don't do any of that. You know, I understand, Barrett, that you don't want to be here and that you were just writing it out so you get your student loans paid, as you directly told me when we were at dinner one night. I get that. I understand wanting those student loans paid. Fortunately, I had my college paid for because I was really smart and good at it. I understand, Adrian, that I've heard a rumor that you're leaving the agency. I pray with all of my being that that is correct and we can get somebody in here that wants to work with these businesses and develop rules and regulations that make logical sense, not the schmimy mess of what you've created. You know, you take a problem and you don't work to fix it by working with the industry. You just come up with some new problem and you throw one on everybody like the 12-inch rule. Look, I've quizzed your investigators and your agents on the stand multiple times. They need to be trained better. You need to shift back to the policy of not being a law enforcement agency, but being a regulatory agency that's trying to work with your businesses. Stop the racism that's going on with these folks. You got people who are trying to change their licenses. You provide no guidance on how their license is going to transfer. You've got a Thintia system that's absolutely broken. You don't tell the people it's broken and it's causing you those problems. You tell representatives those things. You don't communicate to the people whose livelihoods are hanging in the balance because you all can't get the job done. And you don't have the cojones to say, we've got problems with our contractors. You know, a little honesty, a little transparency, and a little bit of involving these folks. Don't listen to me. They know far more than I do about all of this stuff. They're in it every single solitary day. You shouldn't ask me how to grow a plant, how to process, things to save the terps. You shouldn't ask me any of those specific questions on how to run a laboratory. You should ask these folks. What the regulatory process should be is reversed, and I urge you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durbin, for your public comment. Thank you, Mr. Durbin, for your public comment. Up next, Mr. Daryl Carnes.
So My name is Daryl Carnes. A lot of people in here know me. You know me. I met you. You know, we had conversation about the promises that you would make to this industry, and you haven't kept them. We're going to continue to do the things that we can to advocate and change these things. One of the things I specifically want to talk about is Appendix C. The stacking of fines on these businesses claiming in a false emergency. You've abused that power. We're going to prove that you have abused that power. 100%. We're going to prove you've abused that power. You declare emergency. We go to the OMA courts. They say it's not an emergency, but then these people have now had to get legal representation. They've been exploited. They've had the stacking of fines. When are we going to follow what in any other industry is administrative law where you have the opportunity to review, have notice, and fix something? No, but you'd rather just stack on the egregious nature of just thousands and thousands and sometimes millions of dollars on fines on these businesses. And what are they supposed to do? What are they supposed to do? You don't follow the law with the opportunity to fix anything. That is in the law, by the way. And you ask people to follow these rules. We've got 130 pages of rules that change all the time. Every single time we're here, something about the rules is changing, and you expect everybody to follow them. When are you going to follow the rules? When are you going to approve a license within a 90-day period and not 2 years? It's amazing. It's amazing how there's so many people in this room that are set in a year or 2 years that they don't have a freaking approval of a license. But when you want your new money, when you want another year approval, they can call in there and they say, oh, well, we'll hit the green light on what you've been waiting on a year for because we want to collect more money from you. What about this 12-inch on the plant? I've got to talk about that too, and thank you so much for whoever brought that up because that's absolutely ridiculous. It should be based on what the plant is used for. What is the purpose? Not no size. That doesn't determine maturity. That doesn't determine purpose. And ultimately, it's not even a freaking medical marijuana product. It's a damn plant that the Department of Agriculture should have regulatory authority over until you send it into flower. It should be when you send a plant into flower, that's when it gets a freaking tag. Ultimately, we're talking about you want people to follow the rules, but you don't follow the rules yourselves. You want people to do the right thing, and you go and you have, and I got to commend you. I'll commend you on one thing, right? Because this entire industry is going to launch body cameras too. So great job. I know you've seen the live. I know you've seen, and I made the announcement before you did, and I know you showed up to somebody that, to their property. Of course, you on site, by the way, because they reached out to their legislators, which I feel is a retaliatory measure. But the body cameras are going to be great. They're going to be great on both sides. Now you can't go and you can't go lie down into the courts. We can't have a judge that's going to be sleeping. We're going to have the evidence. We're going to have a mutual exchange, and you're going to have evidence just like we're going to have evidence, and we're going to continue to fight for this industry. And I understand that you're on a mission because your governor just went and blamed it all on y'all. Said it was the OMA, the OBNDD, and the who was it, the Attorney General's office, and they eliminated 76% of licensees, which, by the way, you know as well as I do is a blatant lie. I don't know if that's the goal, but ultimately it's been about 42 to 44%, which is egregious. Thank you so much. I'm Daryl, and
thank you, Mr. Carnes, for your public comment. Next, we have Marvin Miller.
Marvin Miller, and I got to follow those two guys? All right. I just have a question on subchapter 11, the process validation. It starts out in the purpose saying that it's voluntary, but then the process validation report subsection 7 says that it has to be filed annually. So are you requiring us to prepare 15 SOPs and file them? Then in addition to that, apparently we're also supposed to file either a self-assessment, which is a form apparently you guys are going to prepare for us, or an ISO validation certificate, which is not applicable to every part of the industry. And then I assume this is a typo, but you're also requiring that this requires a $5,000 fee. I assume that's supposed to be $500. And it appears that it's in addition to our other fees. So if you have a tier 1 licensee at $2,500, they have to pay their $2,500 fee plus $5,000 for a validation, which is voluntary, but it's not. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for your public comment. Next, we have Bree Truitt.
Good morning. Thank you so much for giving us all this opportunity. It's great that we have a chance to let you know how these rules affect us. And so my comment is about employee credentials. According to the rules, if the minimum statutory requirements are not met, the employee credential will be denied. But the rules don't state what these requirements are. The rules state employees must apply for and receive credentials prior to employment. With all the issues with credentialing, this could hinder businesses from hiring new employees. There have been many issues with credentialing, such as social security numbers and pictures not being accepted. So much so that the deadline was extended to the end of February. All the time, OMA makes the rules that they don't follow or are impossible to comply with. For example, the fingerprint check. This is another rule OMA made that OMA can't follow. It has adversely affected businesses by delaying the renewal process. Since the mass rejection for fingerprint attestation, how many licenses have been renewed? Because mine is at day 86 since my fingerprint attestation was resubmitted. I doubt OMA will process my license in the next 4 days. And that's OMA not following their own 90-day rule to process applications. The OMA has all kinds of fines and consequences for businesses not following the rules, and I'd like to see similar fines and consequences apply to OMA when they don't follow the rules. Amen. Maybe then we could run our businesses with the efficiency and trust in our governing body. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Truitt, for your public comment. Next, we have Summer Alora.
Hey everyone, my name is Summer, and just real quick on that 90-day rule, keep in mind, you guys, that is excluding weekends and excluding holidays, but you wouldn't know that unless you called them to press them about your 90 days, because I have also been in that boat. 1 day to 90, you call and they say, hey, actually that's excluding weekends, excluding holidays, but you wouldn't know that unless you know that. But I'm born and raised here in the state of Oklahoma, and I have been affiliated with the Oklahoma medical marijuana industry since the passing of 788. My parents were one of the first 50 people in the state to be granted a grower's license, though they are no longer in the grow segment of the industry and have since moved on to retail. Currently, I hold ownership with one dispensary, but I am also the operations and compliance manager for 3 dispensaries. I also hold the same position for a processing company, which is still in licensure development, given all the new loops and hoops and mostly hassle and misguidance from the front desk at the OBNDD, even though the license was invested in at the announcement of the moratorium in 2022. Today, when I speak to you, y'all or the authority, I am grouping OMMA, the OBNDD, and the legislature into one, as y'all are collectively who we as commercial licensees and patients have to constantly deal with. Since the beginning, I have been and still am filled with so much gratitude, appreciation, respect, honor, and loyalty to the opportunity to pursue entrepreneurial endeavors around cannabis right here in Oklahoma. It has been liberating and life-changing. I often think about what life would have been like had my parents afforded this opportunity in their time, and how much further along the industry would be in its efficiency and standards. When I think about the medical marijuana program in Oklahoma, I often compare it to my youngest child, who was also born at the same time that this industry began. And he is 5 years old. He has a brother who's 7 years older than him, and he looks up to his big brother as inspiration. And that often leads him him to thinking and believing that he himself is also 12 years old. We are not Colorado at 24 years of medical. We are not California at 28 years old. We're not even Arizona, Massachusetts, or Illinois at 12. We are 5 years old, folks. The rate at which you all are implementing these changes upon us, we can't keep up with. And it looks as though y'all are purposely doing that to ensue failment on our end. It seems as though you guys want us to fail. My job is compliance. This is my first time participating in open comment period publicly, but every single year I download, print those rules and regulations, and I tear them apart. Hours, 40 hours, 80 hours, 100 hours, over and over, reading y'all's rules and figuring out how I'm supposed to transmit this information to my team so that we can be compliant. I just got hired at a facility because they were about to close down because they got a $20,000 fine from you guys. The lady she wanted to shut down. She said, I can't handle this. I'm doing my absolute best. But you guys didn't even have a way for her to pay her fine. It seemed as though she was the very first person in this state to pay because you guys had no answers for her to where to go pay. And when she got to the place, you guys didn't even know what to do with that. So please, before you guys implement all these changes, have a better structure for us to follow. A better way for you guys to relay the information to us because we're drowning and you guys don't care. I would also like a little bit more sensitivity on the economic impact statement because it does affect us way more than you want to mention in that. You guys are paid to be here today. We had to lose money to be here today. It cost us to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alora, for your public comment. Next up is John Mochin. I'm not real confident in that one. It looks like M-O-C-C-H-E-N to me.
Sure not say Frazier?
Nope, that's an M. Going once, going twice. Moving on. Nancy Wallace.
All right, I have to get my 4 tiny notes here. All right. Hi, Kelly. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nancy Wallace. I am a cannabis breeder. So to start off, I would like to say that in 5 years, the state of Oklahoma and none of its agencies has been able to recognize a male plant. So would all the men please get up and leave the room for this conversation? Oh, you think you're important? Okay, male plants are also very important. They do not produce smokable flower, psychoactive compounds, but they do exist in our world, and they don't deserve a 45-cent plant tag. Sorry about that. Next is testing THC. So this is an organic volatile compound. It's called a VOC, okay? It changes every minute of every day, whether it's growing on the plant or sitting in your jar. A hash ball that is made today within 12 years will produce new cannabinoids and compounds that do not even exist in the plant. Storage makes a huge difference. Prepackage will be a nightmare. You will prepackage microbes, molds, funguses, diseases. By the time you open it, it will be no good. The percentage of THC is directly related to the amount of moisture in a plant. So when you test quickly and early, you will get higher THC numbers. When you go to the store and you purchase that product 2 months later, it will not have the same amount of THC in it. THC degrades every single second of every single day. So do not expect to go and pull something off the shelf and go, oh, that's not the right number, because it's not the right number for that. If you want the right number, it has to be tested every day. Oh. I don't know the number of businesses that have been shut down. I bought 2 licenses at the moratorium, and I have been regulated out of opening either one of them. I'm born in Oklahoma. I don't got no money. I don't got y'all's shoes. I can't even afford the shoes you wear. and yet you're imposing fines, fees, penalties, new rules. Get a COO? You get a COO, and then I'll get one. How am I supposed to get a COO on a plastic hoop house in the middle of Okfuskee County is where I am? There's nobody in Okfuskee County to help me. I got a place in the middle of the county, out in the middle of nowhere, to try to be nice. I didn't set up across the street from OMMA. I tried to do the right thing and put myself out in an area where I wouldn't be near a school or a church or a neighborhood. And by doing that, I screwed myself out of any possibility to even open a business in Oklahoma. Because if I was in Oklahoma City or Tulsa County, I'd be open right now, bet. My last thing is that cannabis is not new. This is not a brand new product. This is not AI waiting to be discovered. Cannabis has been here for 5,000 years. Just because y'all don't know what's going on with it means you should ask somebody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace, for your public comment. Next, we have Sheena Wilton. Let's see if you're coming up. Promise.
No, next.
I meant you're coming up. I meant you're coming up in a few people. Sorry. My bad. Same.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sheena Wilton. I want to thank everyone for being here today. Speaking to you today as a patient, a medical school student, and the owner of We Came So Far LLC, titled after how tough this industry has been. There's a lot of things I'd like to speak on, but today I'm going to speak on SB 1979. I did have a colleague speak on that earlier about hiring a licensed pharmacist as a dispensary manager. I don't find this to be sufficient. Physicians are not allowed to even prescribe medical cannabis at all on a federal or state level. It is simply a recommendation that they give to a patient. Hiring a pharmacist manager who would just simply be recommending cannabis as well is, to me, a discrediting to a actual physician. Let's see. I think requiring a pharmacist is not only will not only be it will cost the dispensaries a lot of money. So my colleague said earlier, no, if you have a typical salary for a pharmacist and a typical shift, and you'd have to have at least two to operate a standard business at standard operating hours, would be very costly. When these costs are passed down to our businesses and our dispensaries, that ends up going to the patient. When those prices are increased to the patient, it just drives the black market even more. People have spoke on this today, as well as the declining number of patients. It's not that patients aren't using the product, it's because of the regulations, the stiffness, that people are going back to where they feel comfortable. And I think that is our obligation to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I do not believe having a pharmacist will be any benefit to our industry. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Wilton, for your public comment. Next, we have Ron Brown.
Are you going to do me at the end? Are you not going to go back, huh?
So registered speakers will be called in the order in which they signed up.
I know, and I signed up right before me. See, I can't hear you. I'm 71. I wear hearing aids. I can't hear you. That's why when you mispronounce my name, I didn't know who you were calling.
Sir, I didn't mispronounce your name. You're on the next page here.
Whatever, go ahead, bud.
Very good. Mr. Brown, would you please proceed with your public?
Is this one? My name's Ron Brown. I'm with what used to be Cheer Up Farms, but because of y'all's regulations, your rules, your COOs, your money that you wanted to get for OB&DD by making everybody put up a $50,000 bond, it's put me totally out. He's 71, I'm 73. I put up a lot of money to do this for my grandson. We can't maintain it because of the regulations you guys keep throwing at us. You got stupid things like this thing you're coming up with now with putting in a pharmacist in a dispensary. That ain't going to work. DEA in Georgia done kicked pharmacists out because that doesn't work. It's against the law. You guys have a problem with your cloning situation. We can't clone a clone all of a sudden. How can we keep our same genetics if we can't clone a clone? I can go buy 10 seeds from the same person and get 5 different genetics. I can't maintain what I want to maintain by not being able to clone my clones. Furthermore, it's very expensive to do it the way you have to do it with mothers if you don't have to do the expense of that. Why have to do it? You guys are adding problems to us that we don't need. You're not helping us. You should be working with us. Instead, you're working against us. It's like we're your enemy. We don't understand why you're treating us this way. You guys aren't up here to fight us. You're supposed to be up here to regulate it and help us. But your rule changes from day to day to day to day cannot keep on going. We cannot maintain this. I have a property I've had for 40 years. I have to shut down my grow because I have to put up a COO in a building that I built 40 years ago that I don't have an architect for. I don't have all the silliness that you guys want to put in there for no reason at all. It's been a businesses of 5 different businesses over the last 40 years with no problems. You act like that the marijuana industry is going to pollute the world with runoffs from chemicals and stuff. That's not the way things work. We don't put in extra chemicals in our plants that's going to run off and pollute anything. We don't use anything in our plants that's going to pollute anything. So you need to calm down on some of your rules and regulations and try and help the people in the industry. Do I have any time left? 35 seconds. I like to yield it to anybody who wants to speak.
God, I'd love to speak. I don't know how long I've got, and I don't care. My name is John Frazier. I should have went by my screen name, Old School. It's easier for you to remember. I am a cannabis patient, and I'm unapologetic for that. You can count on that. I was prescribed 6 10-milligram hydrocodones for 12 years. I was prescribed 4 Xanax for 12 years. I was prescribed Seroquel, Valiums, all kinds of drugs for my maladies. I've got a long list of maladies. I got off all those pills for 12 years. I've got off every one of them with cannabis. I'm also a double cancer patient. I got open heart surgery 6 months ago. I used cannabis up to the day I went into the hospital, and I used cannabis as soon as I came out of the hospital. I am for cannabis, and you're not going to stop me to get you stop using cannabis. Which of those bills am I against? Every one of them. That's how I feel, and I'm John Frazier, and I represent patients in Oklahoma. That's who I represent.
Thank you to both of you for your public comment. Now we have Mr. Brandon Mosley.
Good morning. My name's Brandon Mosley. I'm with Baseline Laboratories. I'm the owner there. I just had some comments. Since I'm limited to 3 minutes, I'll keep it pretty much focused on the requirement of instrumentation that is in subchapter 8, specifically the ICP MS requirement. You guys give us 3 different detectors that we can test for potency with. 2 to 3 different ionization potentials or ionization methods for pesticides. Same thing with solvents. You allow us to use a FID detector, MS, whatever there. But you specifically say that we are, in the new rules, limited to ICP mass spectroscopy. We do ICP OES. It's just simply a different detector. And we've proved that we can meet all the requirements with that detector that you have set forth for the MS. We pass all the proficiencies with OES. I've submitted all of our latest method detection limit studies to agents of yours. I think you should, instead of limiting us to one type of technology, We do a bunch of chemistry on the front end that allows us to see much lower detection levels than you could with traditional OES because of the chemistry we do on the front end. So I would like you to consider maybe opening that up to additional types of detection instead of limiting this to simply one type of detector for the metals. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Mosley, for your public comment. Now, Mr. Frazier went to the bathroom. We'll come back to him. Next, we have Cole Allman.
Hello. My name is Cole Allman. I'm the laboratory director at Oklahoma Compliance Testing Laboratory. I've submitted a couple of comments online. I'll leave those alone. I did want to touch on Title 442-10861 as it pertains to P, Q, and R. That is the remediation and decontamination and retesting of pesticides, heavy metals, and mycotoxins. In these rules, it states that once a retest is performed and it fails, that product can never be tested again. There's nothing that supports that scientifically. You could definitely continue to decontaminate that product. Saying that you can only wash your car once doesn't make a lot of sense. And I would encourage us to revisit that. This one and done retesting policy hurts the small businesses the most, as they have the least amount of capital. When you take away an entire production batch or harvest batch from them, you put them in a situation where they're going to have to choose between feeding their families or selling products on the black market. And what I would like to say is that we should do everything in our power to keep things regulated, to keep things inside of metric and keep things from leaking out of our state, which we all can probably agree things leak. So if we could revisit that, I'd like to demonstrate that, one, those retests are appropriate to continue to allow the licensees to perform, and then two, for pesticide failures and heavy metal failures specifically, it states that if you fail for those analytes, that there is no remediation, and that is factually false. If we would take the time, I'd be happy to provide data to whatever standard you set. I would demonstrate to you that through extraction, you can leave those carcinogens behind, and that those products are safe for human consumption post-remediation. Real quickly, I'd like to ask you guys to leverage the power of the purse. You have some pretty large contracts to your vendors, and as such, if you ask them to do things in a firm way, I do believe you could get more out of your vendors. With Thintia specifically, Thintia does not have API integration. We live in a world where all systems talk, and for that to not be available to us is a huge hindrance. We also ask that licensees keep additional records. I understand that the industry is moving towards more regulation, but I think it would benefit everybody in this room if that data vault was metric. Not metric specifically, but whatever seed to sale you choose. We shouldn't have to maintain sampling field logs separate from metric. Those should just be additional fields that you add to that transfer. You're asking for paperwork on paperwork on paperwork. You're asking for entities to perform functions that can be, and I apologize, 10 seconds. If you could just get license verification into metric so that it was an automated system, it would improve everyone's life. You would know instantly if someone was trying to move things that they weren't allowed to move. You would know instantly. You wouldn't have to wait 18 months or 3 years for you to come on site and go through the lab's records. It would give you that opportunity to improve it for everybody. And all that is you guys putting the screws to them and saying, hey, we need you to maintain all compliance records in metric and not just maintain the ones that you're already set up for. We're talking 6 weeks here from a development side. It would make everyone's lives better. So please, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Allman. Mr. Frazier, Designated slot has come.
Okay, all right. First, I want to thank everybody that came up here to speak, because I want everybody to speak. I want your word out here, because great. They're doing great. Okay, and I want to apologize, because what you saw a while ago was exactly, I'm a patient. I'm 6 months out from heart surgery, triple bypass surgery. It's real hard. It takes 2 years to recover from triple bypass surgery. Anger, that's one of the main things you've got to deal with. Whenever something like that, whenever I got in a disagreement with you a while ago, I go into fight or flight mode. I would have a Valium, Seroquel, something like that to calm me down. No, thank you. I'll smoke a joint. It will work so much better for me. I do represent patients. I'm a double cancer patient, just recovering from open heart surgery, like I said. That's whenever you talk about these THC limitations, don't tell me what type of cannabis or how strong I need to be it. I've been using cannabis since 1970. I know what I need. Now, I always bring this up too. For 12 years, I was addicted to those pharmaceutical drugs. For 12 years, I was scared to death to take a drug test, because occasionally they would bust me for cannabis. And what I really hated, they would do a false bust. Whenever I wasn't using cannabis and they said I was, I hated those with a passion. For 12 years, I was scared to death to take a drug test, but I would literally take a drug test right now today, and you will not find any hydrocodone, oxycontin, fentanyl, any of that in my system, but I will peg the meter on THC, I guarantee you that, because I use all forms of cannabis, and that's one thing I am doing is I'm testing the different forms of cannabis, because I do love the terpenes, and the terpenes are what work for me so much. It's the THC. Yes, the THC helps. I use topicals, edibles, suppositories, the whole 9 yards. Don't limit products. Don't tell us what our limitations on THC have to be, because I've had to take, if you've got neuropathy, the pain is horrendous. All kinds, cancer patients. I've got all kinds of people that really need this. I'm sorry I was kind of rambling there at the end, but thank you very much. And again, thank you everybody for showing up. We need this so much. Thank you again.
Let's go, John.
I got time left. I'll give it to somebody.
Typically it doesn't work that way, but
It works different in cannabis, haven't you heard, Barrett? So I just wanted to point out one maybe overlooked factor by the state agencies. And it doesn't matter if the number is 1% of businesses are shut down or 99% of businesses are shut down. For every single business that had signed up to become legitimate, is what we called it, because having an OMA license did not make us legitimate. It made us a criminal after you added the word criminal to it. But anyway, so for every license that had signed up to try to become legitimate and has been shut down, I believe that it creates 3 to 5 black market businesses. You've got a lot of equipment sitting around. You've got a lot of nutrients sitting around. You've got genetics sitting around. You've got people trained in how to do it. I mean, I think they just pick up and go down the street and make their money anyway, because they got to get it back, right?
thank you to all of you for your public comment. Now we have Kristen Thompson.
Good morning. My name is Kristen Thompson. I'm an attorney. I'm also the COO of Tribe Edibles. We hold both a grow and processing license. More or less, we're a single source brand. Today, I'd like to address Chapter 10.8.3, Final Form Vape Testing. Legislative intent of testing is to provide patients with the safe final form of a product. However, labs do not test vapor, which would be the end form of a cartridge. They test the oil inside. They break open cartridges, exposing samples to plastics, metals, and glass. Including cartridge hardware is arbitrary, and the product is not tested in vapor form, which should be its true final form. The proposed rules provide hardships for both labs and processors. They provide safety concerns for lab employees because they're now exposed to broken glass, plastic, and metals. And they provide financial hardships for processors. Cartridge hardware is anywhere from $3 to $5, depending on the kind of discount that a processor can get. And depending on the size of the cartridge, you can end up having to provide 10 cartridges in a sample. So that's a $50 additional fee for anybody attempting to get something tested. So it's basically a waste of hardware, more or less, because there's no test to the hardware. I know labs are, who have presented comments as well, are asking for a change in the definition of final form. I would encourage you to please consider that. I'd also encourage you to please consider altering the idea of either testing in final form being vapor or testing the cart or having like requirements around what carts can be provided. Those are really the things that would provide final patient safety. The last thing that I'd like to speak on is the credentialing process. While I do believe that this process is beneficial to understand who touches medical marijuana, the 90-day allowance for OMA to turn this process around provides hardships on license holders, especially license holders who are attempting to backfill abandoned positions. Coming from a business in HR, it takes approximately 30 days to find a viable candidate, and if that candidate is not aware that they need to be credentialed, we're now asking for another 90 days for them to be approved for a position. At that point, backfilling is kind of a moot point, right? The other thing that I asked you to reconsider in credentialing in the 90 days review is similar to the TA licenses and other licenses that people are applying for. After the 90 days, when OMA has not had the time to address the license, you get an email that states that they need additional 30 days. I'd like you to please consider doing away with that additional email. The rules and regs provide that you need the 90 days, that you're provided the 90 days, but OMA being inappropriately staffed or not having the time or availability to review these, this extra 30 days isn't necessary, or it's also putting a hardship on some of these licenses. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson, for your public comments. Next, we have Carrie Lawrence.
On. Hi, I'm Carrie Lawrence, and I represent the Chronic brands, which would be Chronic Docs, Chronic Palooza, Chronic News. I could keep going, but I'll stop. I'm mainly wanting to discuss SB 439, where it requires a physician to see someone face-to-face, mainly a child. I started this right after 788 went legal. I was one of the groups that traveled the entire state with about 30 of us, and we went out to all the rural communities, and we would do it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for 3 years straight. I don't know if everybody knows that, but these children out in these rural areas don't always have an opportunity to get in front of these doctors that would even be willing to give them their medical cards. And so by offering virtual services, which is legal for anyone in the state of Oklahoma, if you're an adult or a child, if you're sick, you can see a doctor via telemedicine. So to discriminate on reefer madness, to not allow a child to get their medical card is crazy. I had the pleasure of helping the Searcy family get their daughter their medical card. I'm very nervous, I don't know why. And when I met her daughter, she was a vegetable in a wheelchair, and she couldn't even walk yet. I helped her daughter get the medical card, and it was virtually with our doctor out at one of our events, actually, Chronic Palooza, which you guys also have coming down the house, where you guys are trying to stop these events as well because you think it's just a big smoke fest. Chronic Palooza was actually founded for patients to help people get their medical cards. But we were able to get her medical card at one of our outside events virtually with our doctor, and I've watched that little girl go from being a vegetable sitting in a wheelchair, where she actually went to prom, she's able to walk, she's able to, and she was on tons of medicine that made her not be able to do anything. And I just seen her do something with 4-H with pigs Like, that's amazing. So for you guys to try to take this away from children who are not just trying to get high because they want to be stoners in high school or whatever, these are children who really need it. I could give you list and I've helped over 250,000 patients get their medical cards personally with my business. So I could go on and give you guys lists and lists of children whose lives have been affected. We've been able to help them stop their seizures, people who are actually in they're dying on their deathbed. They have no other option but to do telemedicine. And this is something that's helping them transition with cancer before they die to make it easier for them. And so take it away from them where they have to go and see a physician when most of them won't prescribe it anyway. You guys are going to kill them. So don't do this to the children just because they're children. They're not wanting to be potheads. This is a medicinal thing that they need for their life so that they can flourish and hopefully grow into be human adults. And I think that it's a disservice for you guys to discriminate, have reefer madness on children when no other ailment in the state of Oklahoma, you can use telemedicine, but you can't with cannabis. You guys are trying to stop it. It was written that way for a reason. No qualifying conditions. Keep it preserved. Let these children live and grow up to be adults. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lawrence, for your public comment. Next, we have Daniel Pratt.
Daniel Pratt, just wanted to speak about the employee credentials. That's going to be a killer for the businesses. We've been since January 14th trying to find an employee to cover our business. Here we are, February 16th, and we're still trying to find an employee to fill that spot. We've hired 5 people, and they chose not to show up to work. So if you enforce this employee credentialing, it's absolutely going to slaughter us. Just trying to find a qualified employee to show up and do the job is tough enough, but to take 90 days to get them to come in, if we're running 24-hour shifts, that'll kill us. Even an 8-hour shift, if you're running 2 employees, it'll kill the business. It's a business killer. In regards to a couple of these House bills that are coming out, 1979, I work with pharmacists. They own 8 pharmacies. To find a licensed pharmacist to come in and work on a pharmacy that just puts in a 2-week notice is virtually impossible. We're trying to find a pharmacist to fill one of our pharmacy spots right now so that we can keep the pharmacy open. It's not easy. So to do that to a dispensary, it's just, I don't think that's the way we need to go. Also on State Bill 1247 requires marijuana businesses to provide notice of construction, all contractors, employees involved in construction of a facility. No other field have I ever been regulated to where I have to, when I'm building something in this, because I've built more than dispensaries, never have I been told that I have to provide contractor employees involved in my construction. Never with any industry have I had that been done. I don't know why it has to be done in this industry as well. They're just contractors doing a job. State Bill 1634 requires all medical marijuana, it's prepackaging. Prepackaging, it's been discussed already about the mold, the spores. We've tried it before already in Oklahoma when cookies came to the state. They tried to bring that to the state. The patients hated it. They would not buy the products. It ended up sitting on the shelves, going old, costing us store owners thousands of dollars. If you do that, obviously you're going to run into the mold and spore issues, but also killing stores because they're having to throw products out the door. State Bills 1734 requires all locations of marijuana sold to have a THC while pregnancy. That's on every product already. So why would we need that in every store? Not everybody in this industry wants to lock horns with you and fight with you. Some of us are trying our best to do our best and make sure we're doing everything right. We want to work with you, and we want to make sure that this industry is done right. We have plenty of senators that are fighting against us and want to see us go out of business. Please work with us, and don't come against us, but work with us that we want to work with you.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt, for your public comment. Finally, we have Mr. Jed Green.
Is this green button makes it get going? It's on? It's on like Donkey Kong? Okay, all right. First of all, I want to thank you guys for showing up today. Director Barry, green is my favorite color, so I especially appreciate the jacket. I want to touch base just on a couple of things real quick. A couple of minor points of housekeeping. 4210-8 1B batch cleanup language. You might look at the wording in there on there may be a typo in there. Also look at 442-10.8.3A4. For purpose could be for the purpose. So there's the nitpicking aside. I'll make sure that I submit these. My eyes bled over reading these rules, so you get to hear about it. Okay, so on 442-10.4.5, personally, I like the move of what you have done with a 12-inch height on plants and the way that that has been addressed. One thing that I like about it is that there had been ambiguity, and this starts to clear up the language a little bit. I also think that it's a really good move that you have allowed for during the growth process of the plant, as the plant form changes, that the tag can be attached to the pot. That saves a lot of issues for growers, and it's something that folks make sure you get down through that rule and see that this agency did actually provide us some leeway. Perfect? No. Progress in the right direction? Yes. Let's see. Final form testing. There's, as the labs were saying, when you get a bunch of carts in there, I know it's a tough balance, but we have to look at what point we trust the supply chain ahead of us. Some of these things, carts, papers, they may have existing COAs on them that may be able to be provided. I see where you're going, but especially when we get into crushing carts and doing that, there are kind of a whole host of issues in there, so that might be something that we take a look at. Also, and this is for my people here today. One thing that I want to note is that in commentary, we have touched on definition of greenhouse, bond requirement, OMMA budget, how those dollars are spent, process validation, fingerprint background check. And the thing to know, guys, is that when you see all of these in the rules, these are all statutory requirements. The people in front of us here actually have zero choice but to put that into the rules. And in the case of the fingerprint background check, something that ORCA as an organization advised our Attorney General and everyone who was running that bill last year that this would not work. They still dropped that steaming piece of shit bill on OMMA. And so all I'm asking, guys, is that there is a lot of reason for concern. But what if for everyone that showed up today and is as passionate about as you are today, join with us to fight these things where they can be fought. For example, specifically, pharmacists, prepackaged, and the assault on cannabis events. These are all statutory measures that it's good that our regulators hear our concerns, but let's also remember the real fight is outside of these doors. And if you want those things changed, if you want to keep some of these bad ideas from them falling on them and then falling on us, let's get that energy in a positive direction. Again, it's just one of those things, and there are a lot of things in here where it's direct from statute, guys. So again, as an organization, we generally irritate everyone equally, but I've got to call it for what it is. Last thing for OMMA, we just, guys, man, I'd love to see improved turnaround time on license renewal applications. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Well, thank you all for providing public comment. That is the end of our list of registered speakers, but public comment remains open until 5 p.m. today, so you can still submit public comment via our website. I wouldn't advise mailing it via the Postal Service. It probably won't get here in time, but you can email it. You can drop by our office physically. You can call. There's multiple ways that you can still submit public comment. And with that, we are adjourned.
meet you.